How well do you know your team? Well, let's ask another question before we really talk about teams today. You know, what is the definition of a team? It could be your spouse, it could be your family, it could be your workplace, or it could be that sports team, that athletic team that you are the coach of. Now, let's pause there for a second and go back to roughly 20 some years ago. My nephew played for a very, very good, solid high school football team in Sandpoint, Idaho. This team was really the real deal. It was always vying in the playoffs and even getting hopefully as close to the state championships as you could ever get, but it was on every season. Well, when my nephew graduated as a senior, his football team, who made it to the state semifinals, it was very, very heavily loaded with seniors. And so all the coaches knew that this upcoming year might be the rebuilding year because he already knew all the players, at least he thought he knew all the players that were going to come up as a sophomore to a junior and junior to a senior. So as state rules apply, you can't deal with these kids, you can't interact with these kids until the start of the season. So the first day of the season, they get to the fitness center, they get to the workout area, and they're going to start measuring their speed, they're going to start measuring their strength, and they start to go through all of the bench press, the squats, you name it, to see how much they've really worked this summer to know really what the team's going to look like. And he started with the kids that he knew the most about, and he knew really what they could really lift. And so he starts to test them, and one after another are breaking all the school records for strength competition. And he's shaking his head thinking, there's no way these kids could ever match at this time in their life, high school life, that they're going to match and even start beating the school records that's been around for a while. But it was not just one or two kids, it was 3, 4, 5, 6. And he's going, what's going on here? So he called timeout and he called the whole team together, and he really wanted to know what was going on because he said, if you guys are using PEDs and some kind of steroid, you're not going to be on this team because we just don't play that kind of game. And all the kids said, we're not. We've been working out at this place down the street that uses vibration. And this coach, you got to look at his facial expression. He goes, vibration. All I remember is those belted machines on the I Love Lucy show to lose a little bit of weight. And he couldn't understand this. So he called off practice. He goes down the street to talk to the owner of this business, comes to find out that it's really quality equipment and quality, technology to help the athlete get stronger and faster. But the whole point of this, this story is that he knew his players and he knew when something was not right. In this case, it was, for a good reason, but he still knew his players. He knew what their capabilities are at the end of the season, leading 3 months later or 4 or 5 months later into the next season. And so I appreciate that he knew his players. And so right now in the world of business, there's been comparisons over the last 50 years about how competition, how sports teams and business are interrelated to certain ways. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to really talk about knowing your team and how to build that team and how to really create that team. And so joining me today is probably one of my best friends. He's like a son to me. He's a partner with me. So let me introduce Thomas Ford. Thomas, welcome. Thank you
Hey,
for
thanks,
being here.
Roger. I appreciate you having me, man. This is awesome. This is a great opportunity to give me another excuse to hang out with you.
Absolutely. It's always my pleasure to hang out with you. And I know that you and I both took a trip up to that Sandpoint High School to really look to find out really what this equipment was all about. And I know you know Coach Paloa, so it's a just a fun story. And I know that you really recognize that story and remember that story. But anyway, Thomas right now is a running backs coach and special teams coach for the University of Idaho. And, being here in the Northwest, Idaho for a while was never even on the planet, on the map when it came to football. And Thomas has joined this team as a coach the last couple of years. They've got a whole new coaching staff there. And I have to tell you, this is really a fun team to watch. but I don't know if I enjoy watching the team as much as I enjoy watching the coaches. And really, Thomas, you like I've told you 100 times, I don't know really who's the bigger kid, you or the kids on the team. And and that's what's really missing in life. And and that's really what I appreciate about you. But I know that standing on the sidelines after some of the games you invited me to, I got to experience how much those kids really admire you for what you do. So that's just impressive. And I want to really find out if we can translate that and transition that kind of enthusiasm to the from the coach to the team back to the coach into the workplace. So before we get started, Thomas, tell us a little bit more about who Thomas Ford really is, besides just a UVI coach.
Yeah. So I guess kind of start with a little bit of my background, kind of where I'm from. I'm a Northwest guy, kind of born and raised in the Seattle area, and got a chance to play, youth football, high school football in the area there. Moved on to college football at Linfield College. It's Linfield University now, but was Linfield College when I went there. Small school, Division III school, but we were very successful. I think over my 4 years there, we were 41-4. We won a national championship as a senior, and and so I got an opportunity to continue playing some arena football over in Tri-Cities, where you and I actually got a chance to meet. Played arena football for a couple of years there. Went up to Alaska to do a little bit of arena football, and then, my playing days, I think I knew were coming to an end after Tri-Cities, and so kind of doubled in the fall of 2007. After my first year in Alaska, I started coaching. I had opportunity to coach at Linfield. My running backs coach that coached me had moved on. My best friend was coaching there at the time, and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I always knew I wanted to coach. Obviously working with you and our fast facility kind of got me a little bit of that coaching on more of the strength conditioning side, but I, really wanted to be a football coach. And so kind of took that job to see, if this is something I really want to do for a long time. And, about a season in, I knew this is something I really wanted to do. Got a chance to be a graduate assistant down at Southeastern Oklahoma State, which is the Division II school right on the border of Oklahoma and Texas. So I was there for a year as a GA. Then I got hired as the full-time wide receivers coach, special teams coordinator, recruiting coordinator. I did that role at Southeastern for about two more seasons, almost a third season. But right before that, I think it was the 2012 season, got an opportunity to come back to the Northwest. I was the defensive coordinator at the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. So I was there for a couple of years, and then, it was a weird time in my life. I had my daughter, my first child, and I didn't know if maybe college football isn't really what I want to do with a family, and so got an opportunity to be a head coach at Stadium High School in Tacoma. There, great stadium. I mean, one of the most beautiful campuses in America. If you haven't seen it, I would go check it out. But we were not very good my first year there. We were 0-10 and felt like we were going to be 0-100 over the next couple of years, but got better every year. Got a little bit better the second year, and by the third year, we had our first winning season since 1993. We made the playoffs for the first time in school history, and so did a lot of really good things there. And then, spent another year there, made the playoffs consecutive years, and so we kind of turned that program around. And I kind of got the itch to get back to college football. I didn't realize how much I missed recruiting. And I got a really great opportunity to be the head coach at Simon Fraser University, which is up in British Columbia, the only NCAA institution outside of the U.S. And so got a chance to help turn that program around. Was there for 2 years, really didn't feel like I finished the job, really wanted to be there for a lot longer. But I had an opportunity I couldn't pass up at the University of Washington as an offensive analyst. So I worked at the University of Washington in the weird COVID year. I know it was a weird year for everybody, but it was even weirder for college football, playing with no fans in the stands after, my whole life being a Dogs fan, wanting to maybe someday play there, maybe someday coach there in front of 70,000 people. Never got that chance in 2020, but was there in 21 as well until we got that opportunity. And after I was at Washington, I really wanted to have my own room again. And Coach Jason Eck, he took over the University of Idaho program in January of 2022. And, when he called me just before Christmas, he just had an opportunity I could not turn down. And, having a lot of familiarity with the Northwest and, the University of Idaho itself, it was just a really good fit. And so, been really blessed to be here the last couple of years. We kind of turned the program around in year one. Had made the playoffs last year, and that was the first time since Idaho went back to FCS, and really the first winning season since 2016. So did some really good things last year, and this year we're off to a hot start. We're number 3 in the country right now in FCS football, and shoot, it's been a whirlwind, but in a good way.
A very good way. And they are a must watch. It's just good entertainment. And if you're a football fan, it's just you'll enjoy it. So I need to ask the question because every athlete out there, I mean, there's professional sports all the way around, but there's something really kind of that's really that tier one in his football, being that football coach, but being a college football coach. What's it really like to be living your dream? I mean, you're an athlete, you're still in great shape, probably could outdo half your team still athletically, but what's it like to be on the stand or on the sidelines, knowing there's a million people out there watching your team, watching you, watching how you do, and being that guy to live the dream of being a coach of those young men out there?
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head. It is really truly living the dream for me. Being an athlete from a young age, I always kind of knew, um, if I could find a profession in athletics, man, that would be the dream. And it's kind of a literal dream when you're making your way through the ranks. But to be here where I am now, and coaching Division I football in a really successful program with a bunch of eyes on it, truly is a dream come true. And I think not only is it a dream come true, I really take it as a great responsibility, right? I think there's millions of people that would love to change places with me and live my job for even a month. And so just that opportunity to not only have a great times on game day and celebrate after big wins, but just developing young men, building relationships with families through the recruiting process, and watching these guys come in as 18-year-old kids and leaving as 22-year-old grown men is pretty rewarding. I just get to see the growth of them, not only as student athletes but as people. And I think I tell my running backs all the time, am I going to be excited about you scoring touchdowns? Of course, but I'll probably be a little bit more excited when I watch you walk across that stage and get that diploma. And so there's a lot of really fulfilling opportunities in this profession, and pretty lucky to be living the dream.
Yeah, and it's more to you than just the game of football. That's what's important. I think I read right before this, the last couple of weeks getting ready for this podcast, 80% of college graduates within 10 years are in a field that's nowhere close to what their degree was in. I mean, not even close. I mean, we're not even in the same hemisphere. And here you are, that probably somewhere around 5, 6, 7, or 8, when you started really getting into sports, you knew that you had a calling. And there's so many individuals out there who wake up every day, they have to go to work, and they know somehow, some way it's not their calling. So professionally, what does this really mean to be able to wake up every day and live that dream of that you really want to do and staying in athletics, especially football?
Well, I think, kind of like I said before, I really take it very seriously, and feel like it's a huge responsibility to make the most of the opportunity. I think it's, like any profession, once you've done it for 15, 16, 17, 20 years, you get in a routine, and maybe you fall back on some things that, I've always done it this way, so let's just keep doing it. And I think as a football coach, if you're going to be successful, it's got to be the exact opposite. We're, every off season, you're looking for the 1% edge. What can we do to be 1% better? And I think that pursuit of greatness is what really motivates me, and really gets me looking forward to coming in the office every day.
All right, so now let's go to the other side of the equation, the actual team.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Because you've been where you were the player before you were the coach. So what does it mean to these young men to actually be able to call themselves a college football player?
Well, I think for the guys, they live this life that so many people would love to live. And I think one really neat thing about our program is, we are in a situation where our games are meaningful. There when you get to week 6, not everybody's playing meaningful games anymore, right? There's some
Yeah.
teams that might be 0 and 5 going into week 6, 2 and 3 going into week 6, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs. And so every game is meaningful, but not as much, right? Where us, we're in a program where, we're 4-1 on the season. We're number 3 in the nation. We really have everything in our favor in terms of controlling our own destiny. If you go work hard and you go execute, well, hey, you keep playing. And I think, to the guys, just being a part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? I know obviously everyone wants to do a great job as an individual, but they can fall back on that team atmosphere, kind of that brotherhood, and just knowing like, hey, if you have a bad day that day on a Saturday, well, hey man, you got 110 guys that got your back. 110 guys that you can really lean on and rely on. And I think overall, that's probably if you talk to every single person on our team, I bet you some version of that message would be that like, hey, it's really important to us, and hey, it's awesome to be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
All right. So now let's get to the science of this and the
Sure.
process of this.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. There's probably nothing more rewarding, like you said, to watch these young men win on the field, but also walk across that stage in 4 years to get their diploma. So let's start at the very beginning, the recruiting process.
Yep.
What does it look like from your point of view in your process on how to really do a recruiting the right way? What do you look for?
Well, I think first and foremost, every single coach in America is a much better coach when they have better players.
Mhm.
I don't care if you're Nick Saban. Nick Saban's not a great coach if he has Vanderbilt's players, right? Like at the end of the day, you got to find guys that are super talented. But I think in the recruiting process, the guys that are really successful, and I feel like our program is really kind of showing that in our recruiting cycles. We've had really 2 full cycles. We're working on cycle number 3, and really our first cycle was not very much. It was like a January to February speed dating type deal. But I really think when you look at our process, it's a process that I think translates to a lot of different avenues, right? I think it translates in the business sector, other team sectors, but really kind of starting with identifying talent. Obviously, you got to have a really good understanding of who you are as a program, what you're looking for in terms of your offensive schemes, defensive schemes, special team schemes, and trying to find the players that fit that. So that starts with the kind of evaluation process of video, seeing these guys in person in the winter and spring and summer. And I think that's where you start, right? Where's the talent? Identify the talent. But I think that's like the kind of scratching the surface of the process. Our process is really, really thorough. We want to make sure that number one, they can play. Obviously, you got to have players. But the second thing we really look for is we want character evaluations. When we talk to the high school coach, because we're always going to do that, maybe they work out at a facility, so we'll talk to the trainers at that facility. We'll always talk to at least one administrator, a counselor, and then one thing I really like doing, especially when I go to school visits, I like talking to like the custodial staff. Maybe the cafeteria staff, the the staff members that see these young men in a different light, right? They don't see them necessarily just on Friday night or at the pep rally, right? They see them in the lunchroom. How are they treating the members of their staff? How are they treating other people and other students within the school, kind of behind the scenes? And so that character piece is really huge. And normally, kids are kids, and so it's not like if you have one character, issue that you're just out. But when there's a pattern, right, it's pretty easy to move off of a player, even if they're super talented, if there's a character issue. And then, after that, we really look into their academics. We want motivated academic students, and it's very difficult to have to motivate kids when they're here. When you play high school football, and I've been a high school football head coach, and sometimes you do got to motivate kids, right? But when you go to the college level, you don't really want to have to motivate them. You want intrinsically motivated people, and with academics, that's huge, right? Because you can be the best player in the world, and if you don't cut it academically, it doesn't really matter. And so we really take this process, of the athletic, the character, the academic, And then really the final piece is just really getting to know their families. I think that's one area a lot of college football coaches miss on is how is their family dynamic, right? Do they have a strong support system? Do they not have a strong support system? If they don't have a strong support system, do they have access to resources, right? Because we're never going to be like a school that says, well, hey, if they don't really have a two-parent family or whatever. I've heard crazy stuff in recruiting with those type of criteria with the families, but we just want to know the families, right? We want to know where the kid came from. That way we can have a better feeling of how they're wired, how they look at the world, what they kind of go through on an everyday basis. And so when you kind of take those four big things together, you kind of start picking and choosing, right? You might have a great athlete, not a great student, low character. I'm probably gonna move on, right? You may have a kid that's really talented, great family, just doesn't have the grade. So there's a lot of variables that come into play, but we do a really thorough job in recruiting because at the end of the day, once we get the kids here and we start playing football games, it isn't the NFL. We can't go get someone else. And so we want to try to, you're never going to be right 100% of the time, but, we want to try to be right, 80% of the time. And so we really do our due diligence in that recruiting process for sure.
So you're just starting year 3 of the official Thomas Ford recruiting timeline. What's it going to mean in this year, third year of having third-ranked national team?
Well, I think it makes recruiting a little bit easier. We tell our kids that our freshmen this year, we had a lot of those guys committed kind of in the summertime before we really had any proof that we were any good, right, as coaches and as a program. And so, those guys have been huge. Obviously the guys that we brought in the 2022 class, kind of same thing. They believe without seeing. But now I think it's easier, right? Our 2020 class, we really are pretty much done. Normally we're pretty much 75 to 80% done in the summertime. We do a lot of our work on the front end, like I said, in the winter and spring, and then get those same kids onto our campus in the summer to make sure we can kind of check off that last box, seeing them do work athletically in person, and then get them committed. And obviously signing day isn't until December, so they're not signed until December. But when you're the number 3 team in the nation and you're doing some great things both on and off the field, we feel pretty confident that those kids that commit in the summer still want to come.
Nice. Okay, so now let's move this over to the business organization, the business community. What can businesses learn from this approach to the building the team process that you've now created, that the coaches have created there at the U of I football team?
It's awesome, Roger, because my opportunity to work with you kind of before I started my coaching career gave me this really good insight into business and what's it take to start a business from scratch and build it up. And so I think there's a lot of parallels between building a college football roster and building a successful business. And one of the things I think businesses may lose out on is the vetting process when they're hiring. I think a lot of businesses hire by position. Hey, I need this position. I'm going to get this person. Where I think they're missing is building a team. And again, I think when you look at the totality of a business, you can't look at it as like individual parts. Because as you know, individual parts sounds good on paper, but those individual parts need to work together. Right. And so I think a couple of things that really stand out to me. Number one, we talked about the hiring process, just doing a little bit deeper dive, right? A person's resume can be amazing. They can interview really, really well. But if you start looking into some of the background and maybe the character piece and it doesn't add up, you got to really look at the risk reward, right? If someone's a high producing employee, but they have character issues, yes, your bottom line may increase initially. But what happens when that person's true character comes out and there's a bombshell and they do something really stupid outside of the workplace, or they post something really stupid on social media, and all of a sudden now, yes, your bottom line went up a little bit, but then it hit a real crash because of the person that you might have hired not being of a high character. And then the other piece, oh, go ahead, Roger.
No, no, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, I think the other piece with the character piece is it helps formulate a culture, right? I think if you're hiring individual by individual, not looking at the whole picture, sometimes that can affect your culture. Again, there could be a high output employee that doesn't fit the culture. And so if that happens, right, you can have other employees that are either, sour grapes about this person, don't enjoy working with this person, and then it starts affecting a lot of other things. I always think of the carryover, right? Great businesses are able to keep their high producing employees. And when you have someone that doesn't fit that culture, you can chase people off, right? If someone that's really great at their job but really poor with the people they work with, well, hey, if you had someone that was really good underneath them, or multiple people that were really good underneath them, but they do not enjoy working with that person, well, now all of a sudden you don't have staff continuity. Those people are looking for other options and other opportunities, and I just think anytime you don't have continuity, you don't have a culture, that's when you're kind of you're floating year to year. You're hoping for the best, but you ain't planning for it. And so I think businesses could learn a lot from just the vetting process, weighing the experience versus inexperience. Excuse me. Someone that's been in a position for a long time versus someone that has new ideas. So I always think just going through that vetting process and trying to put together the best pieces, not necessarily all the best players, right? Because all the best players might not add up to the best team, but finding the pieces, and more importantly, the right pieces that will kind of create a synergy, create a successful and positive culture. And anytime you have those two things, it really doesn't matter what you're doing, you can have a lot of success.
So let's talk about the real results that can be achieved. In football, you have a well publicized standings, you have a win loss column that are you winning more than you're losing? And you know exactly what that feels like on recruiting, on just the mindset of the whole team, the coaches, and everybody when you have obviously more wins and losses. In the world of business, typically the only standings that they look at is the profit and loss statement.
Yeah.
And so many times businesses, because I know them well, I know these owners and managers well, they hire under fire. Someone leaves, they move on, they get picked up on the free agency with another
Yep.
company, and before you know it, you lose a superstar for whatever the reason is. And that manager, that owner feels that they have to fill that void immediately. So they rush to judgment. They find someone that's breathing, that bleeds red, and so you're hired, right? You're
Yep.
available, you're hired.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they shake their head because this person's not really fulfilling what they thought. And all they need all they've ever learned to do is blame and point the finger at the person that hired them, or point the finger that you're just the wrong person here.
Sure.
And those things are going to happen no matter how well you vet, because things happen in
Yes.
life
Yeah.
faster
Absolutely.
you know than turning off a light switch. But the
Yep.
fact of the matter is, they don't take the time on a regular basis to really vet their employees. Now, what are the results from not vetting? Because you've already talked to us about really the positive results that
Sure.
an organization is going to get. So, what are some of the more not so happy results that can be achieved by not taking the time to really fill that void with the right person, the
Well,
ideal person?
yeah. And sometimes the ideal person maybe isn't the right person, right? It looks great on paper, but maybe it isn't the right person. I think one major outcome that I think comes of fast hiring, especially when you hire from outside of your current program or your business, is it can create a situation where people that are maybe it's a manager, and then people that are under that manager don't feel like they're being developed. I think that's a major hit when you don't go through the vetting process. Is you always want to develop the people within your program. And I've always been big, and I've been around other people that have been big about, from promoting from within. Now, at the end of the day, you got to find the best people. But I think there's a lot of value to promoting from within. I think two things that really stand out to me. Number one, it gives people an opportunity. And when, one person gets an opportunity, someone that was below that person feels like maybe I can get an opportunity if I continue to work hard and I continue to do the right things. And so it just provides a little carrot to dangle, on some of your lower level employees, that if I do really well, I do everything my, supervisor says that I need to do, and I can produce at a high level, that someday I can move into their spot, right? I think that's the number one thing, is just, if you don't hire correctly and you don't vet properly, people don't feel like they're being developed. And then the second thing that really comes to mind to me, Roger, is just, again, that creation of a toxic workplace. Like, you don't want people to feel like you're just going to hire the most highest producing person, regardless of their personality, regardless of their character or anything they've done in the past. And I think when you do that, again, it can create a really toxic environment. And then those people that you would want to develop, right, you think are capable of potentially being someone someday, they leave your program before you even get a chance to see it. And so I think that vetting process is again, it's stressful. And whenever you, especially when you lose someone kind of in your, upper management, it's tough, and you want to fill that position as soon as possible. But man, I think, if you think you got to do it in 3 days and you wait 5, I think the rewards definitely outweigh the risk a lot of the time.
So, what does it mean to you to really recognize your team and their efforts? I know the other day we got to go to watch your team play against Eastern Washington. And after the game, I'm standing in the tunnel to shake your hand, see you, talk to you, hug you. And literally after you told me hello and hugged me, you said, "Did you check out number 5? He's the real deal." And I mean, it took you nothing to say that to me whatsoever, but it left a lasting impression on me. But I can only imagine what it would mean to him and the rest of the team to hear that type of, recognition to a complete stranger to him, but how proud you are of his results, and you're calling him the real deal. And I can tell you right now, not too many times in the workplace environment, and you're talking about, this toxic environment, that I ever hear a manager or an employer saying, "Oh man, you got to check this employee out. He or she's the real deal. He's the real deal." They don't talk like that. And and it took nothing. I mean, you were like a little kid at Christmas. You wanted to tell me so quickly how good this recruit was that you picked up, you know, with your efforts. And why can't business owners be proud of that and acknowledge that?
Well, I don't know why they don't currently, Roger, but I know they should. I think, in our profession, we say this all the time in our meetings, our coaches meetings, is, we're in a service-based industry, right? We are here to serve our student athletes, because at the end of the day, if we didn't have those guys, we don't have jobs, right? And I don't think a lot of businesses managers think that way, but it's true. It is the exact same relationship. Without great employees, you don't have a great business. And so I don't know why they don't, but I think they should. And here's why. I really believe that when people believe they're valued, they're always going to play above their level. Whatever their talent level is, they're going to play above that, because the people in charge believe in them. We even have talked at times about, hey, you got to maybe give a little bit of false confidence to the guys, pump them up, so they may think they're even better than they really are. Because if they think they're better than they are, they'll probably play better than they really are. And I think that translates directly in the workplace. I know, if there's ever a time in my life that I have an opportunity to be a manager of a business, or be some type of supervisor in an upper management position, that's something I'll do all the time, because I really believe that people want to be, by nature, right? People want to be acknowledged for the work they're doing, right? And I know some people say, well, they're doing their job. Why do I need to, praise them for, they're just doing what they need to do, what I'm paying them to do. Well, that's true too. But at the same time, people are working, and people are people and they want to be seen as such. They want to be noticed when they do a great job or they do something that's above and beyond or they're producing at a level that others aren't. And I think it's important to let them know that because again, any type of confidence that you can exude in them is could be potentially more than they had on their own. And I think anytime, it doesn't matter what it is we're talking about, when people are confident in what they're doing, they will always produce at a higher level.
So now let's go back to you specifically. What emotions went through you? How did you feel by telling me how good this player was?
Man, I could tell everybody in the world how good he was. The feeling to me, telling you that is like, hey man, I see this kid every day. I know how special he is. I know how hard he works. I want you to see it too. Did you see it? Were you able to see that? And we do all this work all week that nobody sees, right? There's
Yeah.
so much, film work. I'm giving these guys quizzes. They have tip sheets, right? We're watching film every day, but the fans only see Saturday, and so to me, telling you that, it was just a kind of a culmination of, hey man, this dude has been working his butt off, man. Did you see it? Did you see the work this kid's been putting in? Because man, he showed it today.
But also, you took pride in saying that. And that's the
Yeah.
culture that the coaches have created there is that they take pride in the team first and then the coaches second.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, and
and
and, and for me as a coach, I really don't need any praise. Like I am a very self-starter regardless, and all these things. But to see my players excel, man, that's the stuff that gets me excited because I just know how much they put in and how much it means to them. And we talk a lot about how important it is to be a team player and to be excited for your teammates. And so it's no different for me. When for example, a couple weeks ago, we didn't run the ball great. It was fine, but our quarterback against Cal, I mean, he was amazing. And I just kept telling our offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, man, you're doing such a great job with him. He's a great player, but you're doing a great job developing him. And I always think having a service attitude and really putting myself in a situation where I'm trying to serve others, it's really rewarding. And so I get so excited, more excited about what other people do than what I do, because I feel like what I'm doing is just helping. I'm just helping. I'm here to serve. I just want our players to be better today than they were yesterday.
and that shows. And everybody wins, coaches, players, fans. I love it. Thomas, I can't thank you enough for being my guest today. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long, long time, and now we finally got to record it. But I know you have a lot of good inspiration inside you. Leave us with one more little nugget of inspiration before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I think, and really, I want to kind of tie this to the business sector. I would really tell business owners, don't be afraid to be different. A lot of times in business, there's a way to do things, and everybody does it this way. But what I've seen over my 41 years of life is sometimes that person with the crazy idea, that's the best idea, right? And I always say this to when I was a head coach, and I would tell my staff this: I don't care whose idea it is, if it's a good one. If it's a great idea, we should use it. And I think if business owners are a little bit more willing to take risks and find those key players and build your team and always having at least one or two people on your team that are going to push the envelope in a way that you don't think like, those are the people you want on your team because those are people that are going to help your business grow.
Yeah, that is great closing advice. If someone out there listening, Thomas, wants to reach out to you and just to pick your brain more, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, multiple different ways. My email is pretty easy. It's just thomasford@uidaho.edu. I'm on Twitter, excuse me, at Coach T Ford. Instagram, same thing there. So really, those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me. And I'd love to help anyone I can. And again, I'm a very service oriented person, and I know I might be a football coach, and doesn't seem like it would translate to a lot of things, but when you really think about it on the type of things we do in our office every day, it really does tie to the business sector pretty well.
Well put. Thomas, Once again, thank you very much and good luck the rest of the season.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roger. I appreciate you having me.
My podcast wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for my sponsors and my great supporters. So let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them. First of all, I want to thank Rebecca at Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting, delivering trustworthy bookkeeping services since 2003. Dave and Dara at Virtues Matter, making this world a much happier place to be with their Virtues card apps, coaching, and workshops. Stephen at Buller Accounting, giving business owners depth and insight to their numbers. Eric and his team at Ivy Cat Web Design, the real superheroes of web development and design. Jennifer and Jean at the Seavers Real Estate Team, serving Pierce and Kitsap counties with their home buying and selling needs. Maury at the Maury Method, the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer, helping everyone have more clarity, less stress, and overall better brain health. Priya at Pivot My Profit, helping individuals and businesses have better control of their finances and more money at the end of their day. Melissa at the Soul Vibe Energy High, the queen of the aha moments, helping individuals find those holes in their cups, repair the hole, and gain back their positive energy. And finally, Rick at West Sound Recording. You talk, they do all the rest. Thank you, Rick, for all your efforts with the production and editing of my podcast.